Hello, it's time for literary wind down. Are y'all ready? It's gonna be a good one. We're talking all things Morgan Jerkins. We're talking Zeal. This book is everything. So excited. Hey. If you're winding down, let me know what you're winding down with in the comments. I'm doing a rosé, although I can say that I did not do a rosé while reading this book. And I definitely need this wind down. Happy Wednesday. Happy Wind Down Wednesday, y'all. Cheers. I hope you're having a good week. So let me know in the comments two things. If you have read this book and what you're winding down with. Okay. BJ, I can't wait for you to dive into this book. And what a great wine you have tonight. Yes, Jackie, I love a good rosé. Like literally. It's for sure. Happy Wine Wednesday. We're almost at the end of the week. So you guys can hear me okay, right? Yes, Zeal took me out. I'm telling you, I have been raving about this book. It's everything. And the audio is incredible. Okay, Morgan is here. So we give time for folks. I know this is a time when people are getting off from work. I was rushing through traffic just to get.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
How you doing?
I'm doing great. I was telling everyone I was rushing through, trying to get out of work a little bit earlier so I could make it on time.
Oh no, oh, you're good. You're good.
So how are you?
I'm really good. I'm really
Good,
good. I'm really good spirits.
good. That's great.
Yeah.
That makes me feel
No,
good.
I mean because I'm talking to you again. It's been like 4 years.
It has been. I think the last we talked for Call Baby.
Yeah. So like I looked at my email and I wanted to send you something, and then I was like, oh wait, it's the wrong thread. It's in from 2021. I was like, oh man, it's been 4 years.
It has been.
Mhm.
And so I feel so honored that you came on for your debut first fiction, right? Call Baby. And now
Yeah.
you're back with this.
Yeah.
Okay. I, I don't even know what to say. And I kind of was hesitant. I'm like, am I going to reach out to her? I have to reach out to her and just tell her how great it is. And then we were talking back and forth. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and just say, hey, you got to come back and
Well,
talk about this book.
Well, I was relieved that you like it because you're one of like the book influencers, particularly Black female book influencers that's really important in this landscape. So
Thank
the fact
you.
that you liked it, I was just like, okay, cool. So I don't mind DMs from people like you. Like I had a woman, another Black book influencer. Her name is Shelby Monet,
Mm-hmm.
and she messaged me while she was reading certain texts. She let me know like how it was affecting her, and it's like I ain't that big now. Like I check my DMs, so it really means a lot.
Oh, it's just so incredible. And I know when I finished, I haven't even done my introduction. I just started talking, but
Mhm.
I literally was like, this book is why I love historical fiction.
Yeah, I mean, I was skeeting. I'm on Blue Sky now about this like a couple of days ago, and I was just like, sometimes people will read your lines back to you, and you almost forget that you wrote them.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, I was so entrenched in the historical accuracy of it all and trying to get that part right because I couldn't visit Natchez when I started writing this. This was in 2020. This
Mhm.
was when the United States was pretty much shut down and everybody was a bit emotionally raw from all of the isolation. And
Mhm.
so I had to interview quite a number of scholars. I had to look at maps. I had to look at,
Mhm.
sketches. So it meant a lot to me that people felt like they were fully immersed in that world.
Ugh, I, it's just incredible. I literally, I knew, I was like, okay, this book is going to be on my top 10 for sure. And we're not even at the end of the year, but I already know it. So
They,
I'm going to backtrack because I just totally dove in.
yeah.
But Welcome to Literary Wind Down. I am Jamise, and I'm thrilled to have Morgan Jerkins back again for Literary Wind Down. I don't know what you're winding down with, but I'm winding down with a rosé. Good, good. I definitely drank red when I was reading this, but now that we're into, the
The spring.
spring, summer, I'm drinking
No, I
rosé.
know. Yeah,
Yes.
I literally just came back from a trip to New Orleans, so I'm just having my water just a
Hey,
little
listen.
bit.
Oh, well, yes,
I got
I
to
would I highly,
detox a little
yes,
bit.
detox for sure. So everyone in the in the audience, if you're winding down with something, we'd like for you to put it in there. And there's a pinned link. If you don't have a copy of Zeal, be sure to get one. And we are going to dive right in. So you are a New York Times bestselling author of This Will Be My Undoing. Phenomenal.
Thank you.
Wandering in Strange Lands, Call Baby, and now Zeal.
Yeah.
Oh, and so this story, multi-generational story at the end of the Civil War, right?
Yeah.
And so let's start at the beginning. What was your first thoughts of Zeal? What was your inspiration? Was it a moment, a character, or a question you were trying to answer?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I got the inspiration from this during the pandemic. I was living in Harlem at the time. My apartment, if you looked out one of the bedrooms, it was right near Central Park. And I was living by myself, and and there was an absence of sound, and it really got to me. Like, I couldn't even hear dogs barking, which if you're near a park, it's like that's pretty abnormal. All I heard was the blaring ambulance
Yes.
sirens all day and night. And I remember being in my home feeling very, very just fragile, and I knew that I wanted to write a love story. I want to write a love story. And the difference is that I know what the end is going to be. It's that whatever characters we're rooting for, they're going to be together. Now, the genesis and the middle, I don't know where we're going to be, but I want it to be epic in scale, because I've been reading epic stories all my life, but I never saw people look like me within them.
Mm-hmm.
And then, what's funny about writing is that, like, you can get inspiration or just see things while you're doing random stuff. That's why I tell writers all the time to not be so discouraged when it's not just coming to you when you're forcing it to come. So I knew I wanted to start. I wanted it to start at Civil War, and I wanted it to be the backdrop of American history. And one day I'm sweeping my floor, and I see this soldier riding gallantly through the Mississippi fields for his beloved. And I don't know if it was the same time or not too far after, I just got the first line of that part. She was gone.
She was
And
gone.
once that line was there, I knew it was time to write. That's when a line crystallizes like that, it's like it's time to sit down and write.
Oh my goodness. This okay, let me get back to my question.
Okay.
It spans over 150 years, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
From Reconstruction to modern day Harlem.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. It's just, there's periods that, I guess when you're doing research,
Mm-hmm.
it lacks full archive. So how did you approach that, especially as it pertains to Black life? Because, you have to do a lot of digging and sometimes the information is not there.
That was the frustrating part, particularly when it came to slavery. Like, I didn't live during that time. My parents didn't live during that time. My grandparents didn't live during that time. I didn't want to just assume that
Mm-hmm.
because I am a descendant of the enslaved that I know everything about what there is. We're still uncovering a lot of
Right.
information about them. And I'll never forget, I spoke to this professor. I think he was based in Shreveport, where one of the locations the characters ends up. And I was telling him, like, how do I be delicate about this time while not re-traumatizing a certain a portion of my audience? And he said probably the most chilling thing I've heard. He said, whatever you can imagine that they done during slavery, most likely they did it. Most likely it happened. And so for me, I mean, even down to the dialect,
Yes.
I actually spoke to linguists who studied African American vernacular, who taught me how to write it. Because again, I didn't want people to think that just because a character doesn't speak the Queen's English, that they lack emotional interiority or intelligence. And
Yes.
I actually had a professor, Dr. Hiram Smith. He's a Black man at Bucknell University, who actually sat me down and said, like, we often speak in quadruple negatives. And I said, what? Like, what does that mean? And he was like, think about it. I ain't going nowhere no more.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like certain things like that. And I remember I said to a linguist by the name of Taylor Jones, I said, well, this is based in 1860 Mississippi. And how do I write like that? And one day he was just like, listen to blues music. He was like, people like Muddy Waters, they would
Yes.
have been born on a Mississippi plantation. Their grandparents were most likely enslaved. So listen to that and dictate it yourself. Because if you go by the WPA narratives, those people that were sent out to dictate Black people, they were white people.
Yes.
And give an example, like, you know how throughout Hollywood history we say massa? That's not always true. I actually heard a recording by a South Carolinian woman that said master, but the T was very subtle. It's like master. And that's why it's like massa.
Yes.
And it wasn't it. So it was trusting my judgment and also understanding that like everything was surgical and I'm doing the best that I can and I cannot be there. And at a certain point, I have to just write.
Yeah. The word surgical is so perfect.
Thank you.
It's definitely, I mean, you are weaving and threading this story.
Yeah.
So let's talk, because it's dual timelines,
Yes.
right? It starts with a love letter.
Yes.
And so we're not going to give anything away because we want people to read this book. It is, I hate when I don't hate it, but when people say, oh, ambitious, right? It's not ambitious to me. It's just kind of like it's just masterfully told.
I'm okay with you saying ambitious because there were many times when I cried throughout the revision process to friends of mine and saying, I think my ambition has outpaced my craft. I think I've bitten off too much more than I could chew. I don't think I have the range, literally and figuratively, to be able to write something like this.
No, but you do. And I'm so glad you stuck with it, because I would think that someone's telling this story. How did you chart and plan, or did you have a guideline? Because I would think that people would get lost in who belongs to who, what's going on. I mean, even the little gems you dropped out about how the family, once they left Oklahoma, how they were like educators, and how you just weaved everything.
Oh, I just flung with it. I said, okay, if you have one family, okay, so let's think about Tirzah.
Yes.
Is she was enslaved, but she was in the house. And she had proximity to the plantocracy, meaning even if you look at the way she spoke differently than Harrison, who worked outside and was a carpenter. Now, Tirzah is erudite. She can read and write. Harrison is not. He is marked as a Black man in the rural South, and he is often jailed. He's jailed for vagrancy. So to see the trajectory of incarceration on one side and literacy on another, and just make some informed decisions. Okay, if you have centuries-long literacy in your family, you're probably going to be very educated. Your families are probably going to be a part of the Lynx or Delta, or be a part of many different boards. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're going to have that. Whereas incarceration, that lingers throughout generations. And so that's, I'm not going to say I wing it, because that kind of flattens what I did, but I just made some informed guesses, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. Tirzah and Harrison, this love story. There's so many places where you broke my heart, but let me go back. So 1865, right?
Yes.
And then the 2020, right?
2021 at the end, 2020.
Okay. So 1865. So initially, I knew nothing. I just picked it up. I said, okay, I'm going to read it. I'm not going to look. I'm just going to drop, right?
Yep.
But when it said 1865 summer, I said, oh, right? Because I'm thinking, we know what this era is and what it's about. In this climate, do I want to read this type of book, right?
Yep.
But the delivery and the fact that you did not shy away from all the horror. I mean, it's laid bare on the page.
And you know, the one thing that I wanted to do when I wrote about some of the horrors is that they were normal. It was not spectacular. It was a spectacle, but it was not spectacular. And what these people had to keep on going in the midst of that.
Yeah.
You know, there's a part in there where I can spoil it, where, you know, Harrison loses his only friend to racialized, violence.
Mm-hmm.
And he has to keep going. You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? But also, at the same time, that friend taught him the depths of his love, because the first time they meet each other, they're riding back from a plantation where Harrison once worked, and Tirzah's not there, and he's upset. And his friend, his name is Ezekiel, looks at him. He says, "Who is this woman?" Immediately, just says, "Who is it?"
Yeah.
Harrison's like, "How do you know?" And he's like, Why do you think my eye is like this? It's like slammed shut, like he doesn't have anything there." And he's like, "Because I had a woman on another plantation, and I went to go see her, and the stripes on my back from transgressing that line, the
Yes.
stripes on my back felt like paper cuts."
Mm-hmm.
And I love writing that line, because it's not to take away the punishment of slavery, but it's saying that love, and that's the size, that love,
Yeah.
that like that tenderness helps to sort of be able to fight another day, for lack of a better phrase.
And also you kept the tenderness in so many of the relationships, right? Even like I'm jumping far ahead, but even like the between Tirzah and her son Free. I mean, you
Oh
kept the
yeah,
in
she
spite
had
of
to.
yeah,
That was one of the black women, their favorite lines. So Free is going through it. I'm not going to
he's going
spoil it,
through
but
it.
Tirzah's an older woman, and she's looking at her son, and she's seeing how much he's lost himself. He's traumatized.
Mm-hmm.
Before they probably had language for what trauma was at that time. And she says to him, "Before you came from Bogue, Kansas, before you came from Shreveport, you came from me."
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I wrote that line is to let someone know, like, you are somebody's baby. No matter where you go, you're always somebody's baby. And even in my life, my mom always said to me, "You can always come home." And
Yes.
I know that meant that literally and figuratively, you can always come back to me, you
Yes.
know? And I wanted to weave in tenderness throughout the text, because I'm a tender
Yeah.
person. I didn't like, I think when I wrote This Will Be My Undoing, I was 25 years old, and I had so much to immortalize what happened to me, and it wasn't great a lot of times,
Mm-hmm.
but I grew so much as a person, and as this book was evolving. And it's like, I wanted to write love so much in this story, because I love myself
Yes.
and I love Black people, and I hope that I was able to transmit that on the page. So all those lines that stuck out to you, all those tenderness, like, that made me feel good writing them.
Yeah.
It wasn't hard drawing these characters. I knew them, and you know them too, even if
Yeah.
they don't really exist.
It's listen. Let me tell you. It having this conversation right now brings me back to something that Kennedy Ryan said earlier this week on TV, how we Black women deserve to be loved fully, unapologetically, and that's not
Mm-hmm.
seen a lot, right, in the text. You did break my heart a couple of places. I'm not gonna spoil it, but in several places,
Mm-hmm.
Tears is just fierce, right? And she marries Isaac.
Yeah. And I love Tirzah, because I wanted her. I think you're the second person who has said the word fierce, and that's how I wanted to be, even from her name.
Yeah.
Tirzah is a biblical name. It's Hebrew for like beautiful, goodness, and that's what I wanted people to think when they think of her name. But also, she is such a strong character. You
Yes.
know, she fell in love with Isaac, who was a preacher, and he teaches her how to shoot. And I loved writing that scene. This is a preacher man
Yes.
who had sex outside of marriage,
Yes.
that keeps a gun in
In his
his
house.
house. You know
Yes.
what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, "I'm going to teach you. I'm going to put these watermelons right here, and you are going to learn to defend yourself." And
Yeah.
that was so much fun writing, because it's like, I'm not going to spoil it, but it's like, I'm teaching you to go on. I'm teaching you that, as it said in the book, like, you are the hawk and you're not the prey. This is a sexual assault survivor.
Right.
What that did for her.
Yeah.
And
And
he was
also,
a sexual assault survivor too, if you caught that.
yes.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like he was preparing her. He knew she was going to need it.
He knew she was, Shreveport, Louisiana, and this, I've actually read this. I start one chapter jumping ahead where Free is a teenager,
Mm-hmm.
and they're at a funeral,
Mm-hmm.
because men like Isaac and boys, they want to vote, and that's seen as a threat. You can imagine what that
Mm-hmm.
threat is like. And I actually researched this. Kyle Parish, where Shreveport is located, was considered what I call bloody Cotto. That's actually historically accurate. The coroner at the time actually fled from the town because of how many bodies were piling up. That's how violent it was. So it was important for me to bring that up, but also to understand, like, yeah, like while lives are teetering in the balance, like I love this person.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm trying to do life with this person, you know, but I'm scared, you know?
Yeah. Throughout the novel, and just listening to you talk just further confirms, this book is loaded with intention, on every side. I mean, it is loaded with intention. And so, how does the story bring you the title of Zeal?
Well, I didn't want to name it Passion because I didn't want to give people the wrong impression. But
Right.
I love the name Zeal because I'm so used to long titles. This will be my undoing, Water in Strange Land,
Yeah.
Call Baby, and now Zeal because Zeal means ardor. Zeal means something endeavoring towards something,
Mm-hmm.
and I just love the Z. Like it's one word and that's it.
Yeah.
And that's why I thought of, like, in order for these generations to carry on, in spite of, you have to have zeal. You have to have some type of determination to keep going on.
And so let's talk about, can you give a little bit, because welcome you guys, if you're still coming in, we're talking to Morgan Jerkins about Zeal. If you don't have a copy, there's a link to get a copy. Everyone needs this book. Everyone should read this book. Or listen to the audiobook. The audiobook is fantastic. I'm going to tell you this without revealing anything, but the jar scene, you took me out.
Oh yeah, that took me out.
You took me out.
But I said to myself, I was like, that's going to happen.
Took me out because I did not realize what was happening until I turned the next page, and I was like, I was gutted.
And honestly, I wanted that. I wanted for some people to say, wait, what?
What?
You know what I'm saying? Like, I was
yes.
like, because you want to know why? Because that's what Tirzah would have felt at the time. Yes. What? Like, it wouldn't register immediately. And that's what I wanted the reader to be like, what?
Yeah, you know, you dropped us off. You dropped us off a cliff, and then you turned the page, and I was like, wait a minute. And I went back to see is that what just happened? And so let's talk about how the book opens, and then let's get to the present day characters. And that and their love. How she's reading this at there, is it engagement? Or their
engagement party.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the letter and what happens.
So it is fall 2019. We all were there. We don't know what's coming. And it's October of that time, which is it's like one of my favorite months. And there are two partners, Ardelia and Oliver, who are having an engagement party, rooftop party. Both of their family members are there. And right as the party is dwindling down, Oliver gets on the mic because I want to show you something. And it's a very old letter from Tirzah to a guy named Harrison. He's like, it's been kept in my family for generations. And Ardelia, of course, is moved. And she's like, well, it kind of ends like irresolutely. And she's like, well, did they end up together? And he's like, well, how do you think I got here? And then the story brings you back to summer of 1865.
Yeah. And let's talk a little bit about them because they're dealing with the same things we were dealing with, during the pandemic, right? And so can you talk a little bit like how being in the pandemic, writing, how that shaped the narrative of their story?
Well, that's a good question. 1 second. I knew what it was like to be separated from loved ones, and I was able to write that. And as someone who tends to be anxious sometimes, is someone coming back? You sure you're coming back? It comes all the way from childhood. Like I knew that type of emotional unrest. And I was able to sort of put that into Ardelia's life. But going backward, like I think it was the thing of like, you're gone. Your community is fractured. And whatever came before is not the same as what's going to come after. And obviously COVID in 2020 was not the same, but it was unprecedented.
Yeah.
Social order felt like upended. We didn't know what was going on. And I wanted to be able to write that, like Natchez, like where is everybody? Like what's going on? Nobody, like who are we basically? A little bit of an existential crisis, but like okay, I can walk down the street, like
Mm-hmm.
it's okay, like stuff like that.
Yeah. You know, you talk about like you, of course, this will be my undoing, wandering in strange lands, and so you have a great background in journalism and essay writing. So did that shape your approach to this sweeping historical novel?
Mm,
I mean, because it's like,
mm.
yeah.
Oh yeah, because I knew when it came to journalism, I'm really good at research.
Mm,
And so for me, everything from the migratory patterns of birds to the flora and fauna of the area to the southern foodways of this book to the dialect to sometimes even just like the infrastructure of a home at that time. I
yes.
researched all of it and I was meticulous with it, almost obsessive. That's because
Mm-hmm.
of my research background, but also, you know, when I made Wandering in Strange Lands, I was so humbled as a Black American that there was so much I didn't know about Black Americans, that I didn't
Mm-hmm.
know about different cultures. And so when I wrote about Natchez, when I wrote about Nicodemus, what it might be like to see yourself reflecting in others in an all-Black town, I had to think about it, listening to the words of Zora Neale Hurston and seeing like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to have less confidence. I'll go down the street, my doctor's Black, my teacher's Black, everybody's Black. So to
Yeah.
try to absorb that and then again alchemize it into a particular type of narrative. I mean, that was it was writing the characters was fun, but researching that was hard
Yeah.
because I was afraid some historian somewhere was gonna be like, oh, she didn't get that right. Down to the part this how surgical was. There was a scene where you might remember where Tirzah's on her way to the Freedmen's Bureau with Isaac and a group of people, and she sees, you know, very horrific sight, and she understands that that sight happened because of Spencer, a former enslaver, because of a
Mm-hmm.
certain liquor. And
Yeah.
I actually reached out to a food and drinks historian. I said, listen, if you were a wealthy planter's son and you were drinking something in the Reconstruction era of Louisiana that signaled to someone else that you had money,
Yeah.
he was like, "Oh, a Madeira," and I wrote that in there.
Yeah. And so since you brought him up, let's talk about Spencer and
Okay.
how did you craft this man? I mean, how do you research?
I mean, I didn't.
You don't have to look
I hate
far.
to say it, but like, I didn't really need to draw too far because I've seen and experienced racist white
Mhm.
men. So I've seen and I've heard from people that had to deal with racist white men and the stuff that they said to them
Yes.
for all my life, and sometimes they're borderline cartoonish.
Yes.
So I didn't really have to research too hard, and also think about, you know, the insult culture that we're in. What is owed to me?
Yes.
If I come from that lens of what is owed to me, that enslavement, you are mine,
Mm-hmm.
and that entitlement, then it wasn't too difficult to write a
Yeah.
Spencer. He is the part of he is the progeny of a dying empire. And even he
Mm-hmm.
knows it. That's why he develops a drinking problem. So he's
Yes.
gonna hold on to power by any
Right.
means necessary.
Yeah. Absolutely. Um, I love the women that you place in Tirzah's life.
Me too. I love them so much.
I mean, can we talk about the women that surround her, the women that nurture her? Even like she has a daughter-in-law, but her son has
Yeah.
a mistress.
So
You know, it's like,
so yeah, like I you have Novella,
yes.
who is pretty much an orphan.
Mm-hmm.
She looks to Tirzah like another mother,
Mm-hmm.
and she feels like she is owed marriage
Yeah.
by Tirzah's son because she was responsible for them moving to
Yes.
Nicodemus for their survival,
Mm-hmm.
and that type of obsessive tethering, and the reason why he's not a faithful man, spoiler alert.
No.
So in that turn, that absence, I think he even said like she recognized the wind more than than does him. The wind enters in through the doors more
More
than
than
he
he does.
does.
Yep.
And like and by him being absent, she leans on Tirzah. Then you have Miriam. Miriam is Harrison's daughter who survived a huge flood of that time. And she comes to Nicodemus and her parents died. She's by herself. And Tirzah sees her at a party because she sees something
Yeah.
in her face that reminds her of Harrison. He's like, who are you? But both of them have to make up their last names because Tirzah did something before she got here, and Miriam is escaping a flood. So they both have these aliases, but they know each other.
Yes.
And the thing that I love about these women is that they learn that, and forgot to add, Miriam also is having an affair with Free.
Yeah.
So they're very much entangled with each
Yes.
other. But I think what really I appreciate about these women is that they realize that regardless of the men that come in their life, they have each other. Tirzah is the closest thing to the divine as they're ever going to get on earth. And they
Mm-hmm.
treat her as such. And I think that like they need her. Like I remember there was a moment, I could spoil it, where Tirzah eventually transitions.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was Novella walking through the fields in Kansas in the middle of the night by herself. You would have thought this woman lost
Yeah.
her mind. But she was like, Tirzah was mine. That's who I love. That's
Mm-hmm.
who I need to be by. And I'm okay. I got my own dreams. And that meant something to me because it's like, when we say that Black women, we all we have, at the end of the day, we really are all we have.
Yeah.
And these women, in spite of their flaws, in spite of their inconsistencies, Tirzah was that anchor. She was
Was.
that lighthouse. She tied them to their womanhood. She protected them. She gave them wisdom, but she also let them be as free as they could be.
She
And
did.
because of that, they had to honor. They had to keep her alive because they made them feel alive.
Yeah, I felt like Novella was like through all of her acts and dealing with Free, she felt she was owed him, but I really felt that she loved Tirzah.
She loved they
She
love that's the thing. These men, they may have loved them, but they loved
yes.
Tirzah.
Mm-hmm.
They were devoted to her, and it wasn't. And I just meant to make it wasn't a queer love,
No.
but it was still. But platonic love is still romantic love. Agape love, it can still be romantic, and that was a deep romance between those three women.
Yeah, yeah. The relationships. I really I love the relationships.
Thank you.
Um there's I mean even present I mean there's just so much history. You talk about the Schomburg. I mean it's just there's a black soldier.
And
And
get this, there's someone at the Schomburg that's named Novella.
yeah,
Isn't that crazy?
that's crazy.
And this is why, like, when someone was asking me, like, how do you make things connect? It's like, I don't like to use the word magical to describe Black life because of the way that it's kind of been
Yes.
satirized and in mainstream media. But like, Black life is very fantastic, and it's very interesting that when you're attuned to certain work, because I felt like Zeal was very much spiritual work for me.
Mm,
That there are things that happen and people you interact with that almost like a call and response,
mm-hmm.
back and forth, and I love that stuff so much.
Yeah. I mean, you can feel, I mean, like you said, it's a love story, but you can feel your love for the research, for the story, for Black people,
Yeah,
all
I
through
loved it.
every page.
I loved it. Like the dialogue and them talking, I was like, you know what I wanted to feel like when Tirzah passes. I describe it as in she's in this room. There's candles everywhere.
Yes.
It's at night, and honestly, that's how I wanted people to feel when they hear these intimate conversations. It is a dim lit room. It's night. You know what I'm saying? You might even see some fireflies outside.
Yeah.
But that is how I want people to feel. Like you are honored to have to hold witness to these conversations, to bear witness, Father.
And I will say, I mean, even for people who are not fan of audiobooks, I want to say that I'm glad that I listened. I listened and then but I did more listening. You get the dialogue. You
Yeah.
hear it. You hear the dialogue. You hear everything
Yes,
of
ma'am.
how the story, unfolds.
Yeah.
Um, when you say like getting to see
Mm-hmm.
everything, I think the letters were genius, right? Oh,
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many things. I'm like, okay, are they gonna find each other? I mean, just like, oh my
And you
gosh, you
also
want
think about like Tirzah did not want to write him any letter. She's like, I'm gonna get my man. I'm free now.
yes
But why did she have to write the letter? Because the Union forces tore up all these railroads. She had no way of
to
getting
get in
there.
there.
So even the crafting of a letter was created from destruction, was created from innovation.
Mm-hmm.
The bulletins in the back of the church and the Freedmen's Bureau that communicated to others where their people were,
Mm-hmm.
that was innovation. that could be destroyed at any moment.
Right.
You know? That's why, like, I tell people all the time, I mean, in making this book, and I guess it's defiance for the administration, like, Black people, every Black person, especially someone who is a descendant of an Indian slave, is a miracle.
Mm-hmm.
And in turn, like, even writing this book, like, just how long they survived, how their people survived, all miraculous to me.
Yeah. In this book as
Mm-hmm.
well, you touch on migration.
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Yeah. I mean, you touch on migration. So I'm thinking, what type of generational questions were you hoping to unpack through these characters?
How did these cities shape the trajectories of their lives?
Yeah.
Like, for example, I'm thinking about Vera, you know,
Mm-hmm.
would she have been this infamous jazz singer if she would have been in Kansas or Chicago? You
Mm-hmm.
know what I'm saying? Like, I think about like the way that I create stories, and this even began with Call Baby. Like, I wanted the cities to inform. I wanted the cities to be characters,
Mm-hmm.
just like the human beings were. And like, I want people to look at these places and say, like, oh, that couldn't have happened everywhere. That was distinct to that place. So every time these characters move, I was like, how are we informed by these decisions? The railroads, the churches,
Mm-hmm.
the music, you know what I'm saying? The transportation, like all of that. I had to research for each different area and say, okay, is this actually congruous with what was documented at the time? And how would these readers know about it? That sort of thing. The postage mail system, all of
Yes.
that.
And I'm thinking about when they went to Kansas, because I don't know a lot about Kansas.
I didn't either when I first started.
Yeah.
I don't even know where I first heard of Nicodemus, but I was like, an all Black town west of the Mississippi, one of a kind. Oh, I know how I heard about it. Nell Painter, who was a famous historian, taught at Princeton University. She wrote about what is called the Exoduster movement. Tirzah would have been a part of that. Black people that migrate from the South to go into places like Kansas and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So even just writing about how they got there, what ships they took, where they stayed in the middle of the night, how long it would take the carriage to get from this Turner County in Kansas, Topeka, all the way here, the different stops. I had to research all of that.
Mm-hmm. So there's something I want to touch on that somebody said in the comments, but also so we talked about how the characters, and I feel like they were all very grounded. It just seems so like real and lifelike, right? Because they are real,
Yeah,
right? And like, these people have experienced this. And
right.
so how do they come to you? Did they arrive fully imagined, or how do they care? Who came to you first?
Harrison. Harrison came to me first. And
Okay.
then when I thought about Tirzah, I thought about what type of position she would be as a woman,
Mm-hmm.
and probably a beautiful woman, and how vulnerable she would be. But sometimes, as woo as this stuff, I let these characters speak for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
The vast majority of these people who I created, I didn't know what they were going to do.
Okay.
But as I was writing, I was like, oh, okay. Like, even with Tirzah learning how to shoot, I was like, oh, that's going to come up again. I
Uh,
was like, that's not something that she is just going to forget.
I
That's
felt
probably
like
the
it was
moment
going
that
to
she
come
fell
up
in
when
love
she
with
was
him.
learning. I was like, oh,
Oh, yeah,
something's good
yeah,
going to
yeah. I was
happen.
like, yeah, you know what I mean? And it's just like, you know, when I talk about free learning to play cards, and the validation he gets from that community that
Yes.
he was a pastor's son, which was the closest thing to nobility as this Black Shreveport community was going to get. Now, what happened. Now he feels like a nobody. Now he feels like somebody because he can
Somebody.
play cards. It's going to come up again. And so I knew I love ripples, as I call them, narrative ripples, reverberations, because saying like, oh, I'm giving you something, it's gonna come up again, it's gonna be relevant
Yeah.
again, because that's how life is. But other than that, I was like, I don't know how it's gonna be in the narrative, but I feel like I'm gonna use this because it makes me feel good. I feel like warmth there.
Yeah. Someone said when I realized who Vera was, I had to put the book down for a minute. And I felt that too.
I know, because at first I was like, am I making it too easy? I'm like, no, like, think about it for a second. Who is this lady, and why is Ardelia's grandmother being a little bit like reluctant to say stuff? What's going on?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh my goodness. So after reading this book, what do you want readers to walk away with, especially when it pertains to like stories we inherit and the ones we choose to tell? Because people don't tell everything in families, and
I want readers, well, first I want Black readers to understand that you come from a long lineage and a very proud lineage, and someone had to love and make choices for you to exist.
mm-hmm.
I hope that people are informed, that they learn more about places that perhaps they never been, and it makes them want to research more about themselves and also about these communities. And also at the same time, I wanted people to just be moved.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't get any scholarly than that,
Yeah.
because love connects me to my humanity, and it connects all of us to the humaneness of people in this book, in spite of the oppressive systems that they were under.
Yeah.
And I hope that if people walk away feeling like, whew, or like can't stop thinking about it, or it lingers with them,
Yeah.
that's a romance in and of itself.
That would be me.
Uh-huh.
I mean, because it's like it's a good reminder, because even in the midst of everything right now, love, tethers you.
It
And
does.
I think about how fierce Harrison was for this woman.
Yeah, because
Even
you know
though he
what,
had
like,
another woman that like real, I mean, here you are having these women that men,
Harrison had his pick. I hate to say pick of the litter because it sounds good, but it's like,
yes,
I remember my editor said to me, would he really be celibate? And I thought to myself, no. Is a handsome man who is probably has muscle on him. He knows how to
yes,
ride a horse. He knows how to fix up his own shack. And the demographic is already skewed because of the war. So what you think that he's going to do in his free time?
yes,
You know what I'm saying?
yeah. I mean,
Like, it was fun
exactly.
writing that part.
Yeah. Any part of it hard for you to write, where you felt you had to step away for a minute?
I think the part with the jar, that was hard. It was that thing where I was like, I wrote it. Now it's time to close the tab. I don't even want to think about it for another day or even a week, because I was like, I didn't even want to do that.
Yeah.
But I don't know how this is going to end, and I'm not going to sweeten anything for anybody. That was hard. But honestly, the first page where Harrison comes back and I'm describing what Natchez was like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking in my mind, like, how long that took to nail that down. So when people say, oh, like I feel like I was there, my editor was very much critical of like, you need to orient the reader. And I'm like, damn it, there's a cemetery here. There's something that was like, no, you have to, like, from the flowers and all that, like I had to really
Yes.
immerse myself. And so I used to tell people, like, it felt like, imagine you are a singer and you hit that high C in the booth, and the producer's like, do it again. And you do it 10 more times. You feel like I have nothing. That's how I felt. And that was very hard for me, was to just describe, like to really describe. But when it was done, when I read a certain lines, when I said like, the weeds on the plantation, like outstretched hands, I was like, oh, damn.
Yeah.
Like, I was really proud of myself.
You should be. I mean, you talk about flowers that the slaves maintained so beautifully lay limped on the brown patches of
Yeah.
grass. Yeah.
It's
It's like
the era is over.
it's over.
Mm-hmm.
The era is over. The devastation is there.
Mm-hmm.
So he comes back to nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, whew, I don't even know what's next. But I mean,
Um, so when I was in
yeah.
Louisiana, it's crazy because I was born and raised in Jersey, and everybody kept thinking that I was from the South. And I remember I said to this Uber driver said to me, "You have to be spiritually connected." I remember one day I went down during sunrise, and my hotel room was right in Mississippi, and something told me to go down there. And I went down there, and I just stood out there. I was the only Black woman there, and I cried. I called my friend up who has family from Mississippi, and I said, "Can you please just hold space for me?" Because I was the only Black woman there. I see white people jogging and whatever. Cause it is a beautiful promenade, but I was crying because I was like, I'm looking at the ripples on the water and the sun glistening on the surface, and thinking about what might be
Mm,
underneath and what was transported during that time. And I just cried. I cried, and I wasn't even
mhm.
sad. It was intense. And so I was doing some research and this environmental activist, shout out to Christina LaHue of Common Ground Relief. We were driving out around New Orleans, out by St. Bernard Parish, and she was showing me these petrochemical plants that I kept seeing line these neighborhoods. And she told me, you know those petrochemical plants on former plantations? And she said to me that a lot of these families that were former slaveholding nation, that plantation, the slaveholding families, they allowed petrochemical plants to be on these plantations. And if you read about it, these same refineries are killing Black people. They're in fact, one of them was called Cancer Alley.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I woke up the next morning and I had a dream. I had a dream that involved the Mississippi River. It involved petrochemical plants, and it involved a family surviving. And I saw an image, and I woke up and I immediately opened my notes app and I just started jotting down things. And an image never has come to me that immediate like that. And I know it's because I was in the
Yeah.
South. And my friends were just encouraging me, like, yeah, they were like, right. And, you know, and even when I've been back, I took a nap yesterday, I had another dream. And I was like, you
This
know
is it.
what? I said, I think that my brain is attuned to the South. It's going to always inspire me.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel something working through me. So I'm fingers crossed on what I can draw out from that. But I'm dabbling and researching and trying to interview people as usual. I love doing
Yeah.
that.
We're here for. I mean, I cannot rave about Zeal enough. It's as perfect can get when you're talking about historical fiction, when you're talking about dual timelines, characters, and just telling a story. Like it is like storytelling at its
Well,
finest.
that I'm going to carry that with me. I
Yes,
mean, because you don't even know how many times, well, Black women have said things to me. And as someone who has been writing for 7 years, it makes me feel happy that I am improving at my craft. It makes me
oh
happy that other Black women say, you can tell that you love Black people, because I
yeah,
do. But it also makes me happy because it's just like, I write for y'all first and
yes,
foremost. And I mean, I almost I lost the words. I'm like, I love what I do, and to be validated for that, and to see people see you maturing as an author, as an artist, it's like that's what this is
yeah.
about.
I kept telling my sister, I was like, this lady's gonna get tired of me talking about this book and tagging her. But I'm gonna.
No,
I
I
said,
love
I
it
want
because
everybody.
you probably already know because you interview authors, but people, I will never stop emphasizing the loneliness of writing. I had friends of mine who I spoke to about the book, but the times where I doubted myself, the times where I cried, the times where I was afraid my book was going to get canceled because I couldn't hit the note. I couldn't find the note figuratively. Like, and I just didn't think that I could do it. So I don't mind when you or other Black women say how much they like it, because it makes me realize, like, at the end of the day, you still want to know you did a good
Oh yeah, you did
job. You
a
really do.
fantastic job. You did a fantastic job. Yeah, yeah, you did a fantastic job. I really, really. What made you decide that you was gonna go from nonfiction to historical fiction? And I want you to know my two favorite genres in
Okay.
nonfiction.
Well, okay. Well, historical fiction. I'm a history
Okay.
nerd. When I was doing Water and Strangeness, I loved combining my travel logs with historical research and oral history. I loved it. The
Yeah.
organization was hard as hell, but I really did like it. So I'm a history
Okay.
nerd. If I hear your last name, I'm like, are you people from here?
Yeah.
You know, like, it's like, where they come from? Like, that's just how my brain works, you know? So I loved historical fiction. I chose to do fiction because the world was too rough.
Yeah.
I didn't want to write in hard facts and data. I
Yeah.
really didn't. And this is why even my next book idea is fiction. Because again, the world is tough right now.
Yes, it is.
And I can explore themes more fluidly than I feel like I can in nonfiction. But I do know, I trust myself. If I get a vision and I feel like I have something to say in plain narrative prose, then I'll do that. In nonfiction, I'll do that. But right now, my brain, fiction is my first love. It's my first love since I was 14 years old.
Yeah. Morgan, I have to ask you, I mean, I see with everything on TV, don't you see this as a series?
From your lips to God's ears. You know, every time people are like, oh, like, this feels so cinematic.
It
Listen, I'm a manifested series or a movie.
yes.
Like, all I ask for is whoever decides to make it into something, the people need to sound like where they're
Yes.
from. Don't have somebody from Natchez sound like they're from
Yes.
Atlanta. They are from
They
this.
have to sound
That's all
historically
I
accurate.
ask for.
Yes.
And Harrison,
Who's
whoever they
Harrison?
make, he needs to be strikingly handsome.
Okay, so who would we think would be Harrison?
You know, I forget his name. I have my computer next to me. I forget his name. Do you know who Aldous Hodge is?
Oh my word. Oh my gosh. Yes.
I think Aldous, if he was interested, I would be like, do you know how to ride horseback? Something like this. Like, well, you gonna learn. It's like,
He would be perfect.
yeah, Aldous Hodge, because like I want somebody that is very strong and will like take your head off your neck if he has to, but also has a bit of moroseness in his eyes, just a little bit. And I think that he would be able to nail it. But again, like, you know, like I think about a lot of people have talked about Sinners, right? And they were like, I can't believe that your book is coming out at the time of Sinners. And I'm like, listen, if Michael B. Jordan want to put on a uniform and get on horseback,
by all means.
By all means, because as long as you understand the undertaking of what it is, of what's about to happen, and as long as you love my book, if you love it, you're going to love this.
You're going to love it.
And vice versa.
Absolutely. And last question before we roll out is Tirzah. Like, who would be Tirzah? There's so... who do you think could play Tirzah?
Honestly, I wanted to play Tirzah.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay.
I did. I was like, I wanted to, I would want to play Tirzah because I could do it. But if we had to choose someone, an unknown, I want an unknown, a black woman that's been working off Broadway, whatever, that this is her moment. Not somebody you could attach to the show already. Not somebody that you've seen on Instagram. She is an unknown, and she is a force, literally a force.
And she develops it. She actually takes on this role.
Yeah, that was her moment. You can't attach to anything. Oh, I remember this. You haven't seen her probably in anything. That is Tirzah.
I like that. I really like that. Whew, I needed this.
And Isaac will probably be Aaron Pierre if you want to do it.
Oh.
I know he's done the Underground Road, but I'm like, him as Isaac on a podium.
Yes. As the pastor.
Oh yeah.
For sure. That's good. I mean, somebody in the world is reading and listening and talking, because I tell you, a series, a movie, it's definitely, it's such a layered book. And when people say, oh, I don't want to read another slave book, I'm like, no, this is not that.
And the thing is, it's like, I'm gonna say this, because somebody brought this up. They were like, in Maryland, they were like, how do you feel if someone says I don't want another slave book? It isn't just a slave book. That's number one. But number two is, that's so dismissive of black creatives. I have never heard a black creative say, I don't want another slave book. I've heard a black reactionary say it's very easy to react, and it's not the same when you create. I want to keep talking about this period whenever I feel like it, because we are still learning about things from that period. So why can't I talk about it? It was for generations that it happened. So I can talk about it when I feel like it, in my sense. You know, we don't need another what?
Like, and people are still waving flags from that period.
So if you say that if we don't need another slave movie because you don't see any joy, they didn't have any joy. Are you saying that people that were enslaved didn't have any joy? The juke joints and all that were big to differ.
Yes.
Like, you know?
Yeah. And it's just, you know, you're telling about periods that we're having more and more information unearthed. Places, like I told you, I didn't know about this town in Kansas. So it's like, it's for people like you doing the research, doing the hard work, that we are truly grateful that you're doing this work.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I cannot thank you enough for talking to me again. You got to come back when the next book comes out.
Yes. It's already happening.
It's already happening.
Already happening.
And then we're going to talk again. So if you're in the audience, I'm letting you know, Zeal is the June 2025 Diverse Spine pick. So hop on over. You still got time to read it and come and listen to us again in June, because this book is kicking off our summer reading series on diverse spine. So I will be talking to you again.
Thank you so much. It was so great talking to you tonight.
You too. Take care.
Take care.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.